Imagine you build this beautiful online business and you've got clients and you've got signature programs and maybe you've even got like specific products that you offer and things are going great. You're profitable, you're making money, you're creating a gigantic impact on your audience, and then everything disappears and it goes away. And you're like, "Holy crap, what happened?" And you see the guy across the road with the same logo as you, the same business name as you, but they legitimized your business. What if you fail to legitimize your business? And if you're wondering, what does it even mean to legitimize your business? That's what we're talking about today. But what if you could prevent all of that from happening in the first place and protect yourself, protect your pride and joy that is your business, that is the impact you're creating in the world, but you just don't know how? And if that's you, this conversation with Joey Vitale, the trademark lawyer, is the conversation for you. We're going to be bringing you all the information you need in order to lock down your business and run a legitimate business. Right? Not that it's not right now, but it might not legally be that way. And we're here to help you with that. So before we talk to Joey, you know the fee for the broadcast. If you take away any piece of value or information or philosophy, then share this show with just one person who could use it the most. Share it on social, share it in conversation with a friend. That's how we've been able to grow over the past year and a half. And it's because of you being on the team that we've been able to make that a reality. So without further ado, let's talk to Joey Vitale about legitimizing your online business. And for those who don't know Joey is a lawyer, a speaker, and a business coach for online entrepreneurs. With his law firm and his courses, Joey helps online business owners call legal dibs on their brand name and signature methods, so they never have to worry about losing their brand overnight. Joey has helped thousands of entrepreneurs and has spoken all over the country to help business owners stay safe and thriving. Joey, this is a very necessary conversation, my friend, and it's great to have you here.
Brandon, I am honored and just very excited on a Monday morning to be chatting with you, which thanks for making my Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. Right back at you. And a Monday morning, even with a time difference between us and daylight savings time, you made it happen to be here. You came with a brightness. You've got the bright background.
I've got the coffee. Be an awesome
I'm all
combo. Good.
Yeah, I'm feeling good too, man, to have you here. And before we dive into your story and specifically into what trademarking and all that jazz even is and all like the terminologies, do you have like an actual story of someone that maybe you even worked with where this situation that we've been painting a picture of has actually happened to someone?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have several stories and just some context. I used to not be a trademark lawyer. When I decided to start my own law firm and help businesses with legal stuff, I was doing everything. I called myself the kitchen sink business lawyer. So if you needed an LLC or a contract or copyright help or whatever, our menu was pretty extensive. We were like the Cheesecake Factory in terms of like what we could do for business owners. But more and more, I heard stories that made us realize that out of all of the legal things that we could be doing, trademarks were a really high value service that we could provide that could really help business owners, especially business owners that weren't super established, that weren't making 7 figures a year yet. One of the biggest nightmare stories that I heard was one of my clients and now friends who was going on family vacation. They had set their phone on airplane mode, and right when they had gotten to, I think it was Hawaii, the plane landed. She turned off airplane mode, went into her inbox just out of habit, and saw those words cease and desist in an email. And that email was from another business owner with a similar podcast name, saying that she had 30 to 60 days to change everything with her podcast. And her podcast was her main visibility tool, her main way of getting attention and leads and clients. And so it was really scary for her. But more important than the, potential lost revenue and the lost leads was it completely wrecked her vacation. That time that was set aside for her to spend, quality time with her family, to be off business, to relax, ended up being a time where she couldn't get out of her out of her mind. She had her laptop open the whole time. After, I should say there's a happy story to all of this. We were able to get her to rebrand and do all of this stuff, but this is how trademark problems tend to happen. Is it's like a flat tire situation. You don't see it coming, and when it happens, it never happens at a good time. You're like on your way to an airport or a hospital or something, and the tire pops.
Yeah. It's the same. I mean, it sounds similar to even health, where, you don't take care of yourself for 40 years and then all of a sudden there's a big problem. And then now you're changing your diet, you're going to work on your body, and better late than never, right? But
Yeah,
you could have prevented that and have felt even better along the way and been able to enjoy your Hawaii vacation had you actually set out to protect yourself, protect your business. And people, we don't even think, like, I didn't even think of the idea. And again, I don't know if I should say this, but I didn't even think of the idea of trademarking the podcast name, right? Because so I just put it out there. So this example of this individual, what did she have to do after she got that cease and desist? What did the cleanup look like?
Well, there is a question of, do we fight this? And were you really the first to use? And trademarks are complicated because it's not about who filed and got their trademark first. It's about who used it first in commerce, regardless of who filed the trademark. One of the fascinating things about trademark laws is that trademark registration that we're talking about that is so important to get, that is really just like your birth certificate for your brand. It's a piece of ownership, but it's not your actual birth, right? It's not the actual trademark right. And so it's a really confusing thing to try and figure out who owns superior rights to something like a podcast name if people don't have their registrations in place, and they don't have clean paperwork. The problem here was that if you don't have that paperwork, let's say that you were the first to use it, that you've been using it longer, trying to show in court that you are actually the first to use requires you to spend thousands of dollars at least to have an attorney help you defend yourself in court. The typical trademark dispute costs an average of $200,000.
Wow. And this is when you have a trademark.
Even if you have it and someone else is, if there's a heated reason for there to be a dispute. I say that because most small business owners just don't have the budget to play defense or fight a trademark battle. And so usually, even if you were the first person to use, even if you have a good faith claim to it, a lot of times business owners still can't justify the cost of having an attorney fix the problem. And so they rebrand anyways.
Even with the trademark.
If you have a trademark registration, then you're probably not going to receive cease and desist letters. And that's the thing, is that when you apply for a trademark, it's really a defense strategy, less so than an offense strategy. Most of my clients don't hire me because I'm some bulldog who can help them, go after a bunch of business owners and copycats and things. That can be a part of it. But really what they're doing when they're working with my team specifically, because we're a bunch of lovers, not fighters over at Indie Law. If you want to work with an absolute bulldog and shark of a law firm, I have some great referrals for you, but that's not really in our nature. Our main thing is making sure that you are properly playing defense with your different brand elements and you're not accidentally infringing on someone's rights. Brandon, I don't know how big of a beer aficionado you are, but if you go into a microbrewery these days and you see what's on tap, you'll notice that all of the names are absolutely crazy sounding.
Yeah.
That's not just them being creative. It's because they have to think outside the box at so many levels so that they don't have another beer name that's so similar to some other microbrewery.
Oh.
I give that example because a similar thing is happening in the trademark world and really with podcast names specifically. Because we think about, trademarking our name. It can be as simple as like a domain name level thinking, where as long as no one else has my exact same name, I'm okay. That's not how trademark laws work. And there are 500,000 trademark applications being filed every year. I say all of that to highlight that when you apply for a trademark, it's not just about legitimizing your brand and having this extra layer of protection for what's yours. It's paying a little bit of money and time and effort to make sure that you're not accidentally infringing on someone else.
Fascinating. And this is, again, why I was excited to have you on, because I truthfully know nothing about this legal world of business.
You're not alone. Most lawyers don't understand all of this stuff.
Yeah. I told you when I was 18, I wanted to be a lawyer, and I actually started to go to school for political science, but I got into sales and started doing well there. So I branched into that direction, and that brings us here today. Right. So like, I know you mentioned that
you made a good decision, Brandon. I think a lot of any other attorneys or law firm owners who are listening to this would be like, yeah, I wish I would have leaned into sales more before law school.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that, because you pursued this path, right? And I'm curious to know what your story looks like on this path that you pursued being a lawyer. I know you didn't say, I want to be a trademark lawyer for online businesses, until you saw the actual need for that. But I also know that, you know, you suffered your own difficulties during your journey, and you mentioned panic attacks in the past. And I'm curious to hear what that journey looked like for you, because I think it's really relevant for the people listening right now who might be overworking themselves or who might be stressed out doing what they're doing. Like, what has your journey looked like? Can you give us a glimpse of who you are?
Sure. I'll try and be as quick as I can around some of this backstory. But the real answer to that question of why law school and why I decided to be a lawyer was I never really had a clear idea of what I wanted to do when I grew up. And honestly, law school just kept seeming like the safest bet that was family and parent approved as well. So I went to law school. When I got to law school, then the focus was, okay, how can I just get a nice, secure job? And then 2 years after law school, finally realized that I just didn't feel comfortable and natural in a typical like courtroom law firm setting. And I looked around at the other lawyers at the firm who were all great people, but none of them had lives that I wanted. And so I decided to do my own thing, not really knowing what was out there. Met some other great business lawyers who gave me the confidence to move forward with this practice area, to go out on my own. And then, like I was telling you, Brandon, about a year after I launched my firm, I had this crazy series of back-to-back panic attacks. And I ended up in the hospital for a little over 2 weeks. And once they figured out what was wrong with me and changed the medication that they were experimenting with me, I got better quickly. But it was a very traumatic 2 weeks. And it was very much your doctor's orders are to create a stress-free life and law firm for yourself. And so it was with that in mind that I started to kind of work on this puzzle of how can I create a low stress or even stress-free law firm? Well, what would that look like practice area wise? What would that look like in terms of building my own team? And that was happening as I was hearing more and more of these horror stories about trademarks. And so then we decided, oh, what if we actually transitioned into just being a trademark firm, helped businesses in this really high value way, and streamlined all that we were doing so that the business was set up to, have nice systems and processes in place to make sure that all of our clients were well taken care of.
Wow. What was, just asking from a business perspective out of curiosity, what was the most difficult part of niching down to focusing on the trademark piece? Because a lot of other firms, like when even people who are a bit more versed and they understand that they should probably trademark a name or a product or even their business name, they go and they probably Google trademark, and a big firm comes up who does 20 different things. What was some of the difficulty at the beginning for you in niching down and choosing one specific target? Like, was there fear involved in that, or what did it look like?
Oh man. Well, there were a couple of big fears. One, like you were saying, this idea that, what if one of our clients has some big legal need that could be great for us to accept? Or, yeah, who are we losing out on by not doing this other stuff? Or
Hmm.
what if, LegalZoom gets better at trademarks? Because right now I actually recommend LegalZoom for businesses for a number of things. But there's a reason why most of their trademark applications fail.
Mm.
And it's not because LegalZoom is bad. It's just because any type of kind of cheap form filling service isn't going to give you the analysis that you need when it comes to trademarks. Because when you file for an LLC, as long as you don't make a huge mistake, they're going to accept that it's going to be fine. But over half of the trademark applications that get filed get denied. And that's
Wow.
designed on purpose. The trademark office and the examining lawyers at that office get paid to find reasons to deny applications, because it's important to our marketplaces and for customers and consumers that we keep the number of trademarked business names and slogans and things to a minimum, so that there's freedom in the marketplace.
Interesting. Is it in their, so it's not in their best interest to accept all trademark requests? And who is they that are accepting these trademark requests?
There are thousands of examining attorneys at the trademark office. And when you file a trademark, it goes through this really interesting timeline. For anyone who's interested, I'm happy to share a visual of what this looks like. But it takes now anywhere from 15 to 18 months if you actually get it all the way through to the finish line.
Wow.
The first 5 or 6 months, nothing happens, because they've got such a long queue right now of applications that they have to sort through. But once they look at it, it gets reviewed by a human being who is looking at your application and looking for some reason to deny it. There are a handful of reasons why it gets denied at that stage, or they might say it looks good. If it looks good, then it goes to I'm oversimplifying here, but to basically a second round where not the trademark attorney office, but anybody out there can challenge your rights. It's almost like a wedding ceremony, speak now or forever hold your peace, 30-day window where maybe a competitor in your space can, if they have an attorney, they can see that your application is pending, that it's been published. It's a magazine that no one really reads, but it allows for people to say, hey, no, I think that violates my trademarks, and so I want to create an opposition proceeding.
Wow.
Once it gets through those 30 days, then you've essentially got the registration. It just takes a while, maybe a month or two, for the paperwork to get all ready, and then you'll get a really nice registration certificate in the mail with a golden stamp. A lot of my clients love framing them, and Brandon and I were
You have
talking
one
about.
behind you?
Not here. I do
Okay.
in my other room.
Okay.
It's interesting because Brandon and I were talking about like design and the importance for business owners to just think about, how to make your office look. We used to gift our clients frames for our trademark registrations, but we found that most of the time they had their own design needs. So now it's really fun just to see all the different ways that our clients are framing them or doing cool things with them, because it really is like the modern equivalent of that dollar bill that's taped on your cash register.
Wow. It's so true, though. It blows my mind, though, how someone can say, I'm going to take the step to get this, and they go through some generic trademark service because, again, like I mentioned to you, there's not a lot of people out there doing what you're doing, Joey, being the front person for your brand and your business, especially as a lawyer. Like when people think of lawyers, they're thinking, courtroom, suit and tie, only black or, gray suits, no like bright colors. Like they're not thinking you with the feng shui background, with the hat on, looking good, looking healthy and speaking about these things. Like, and it blows my mind how they can go through this whole process and a year and a half later, finally be told that their trademark has not been accepted.
Yeah.
Huh. So, okay. So let's say we go about it the right way, right? We work with you, we work with your firm. What are the different things that we should place an emphasis on having trademarked in our business as an online business?
Great question. For most businesses, it makes sense to secure the name of your brand first. There might be exceptions to that. We work with a lot of personal brands where their name is their brand.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you can get a trademark on your name, but it just might not be highest priority in that sense.
Okay.
From there might be slogans or logos or podcast names or live show names, things like that. There's no shortage of things that are existing as brand identifiers or trademarks in your brand that you can secure. But what we found increasingly is that for a lot of people in the coaching space, the online course space, a lot of them have some type of brand component either to their name or their signature method or something that inspires the rest of their branding. And I say that to ask you this: if you found out that maybe it's your business name that got denied as a trademark, would you look at the rest of your brand assets and say, well, if I can't use my business name, I'm going to have to rebrand my business name. I might have to rebrand everything because they're all connected in some way. I say that because a lot of times we file first for that most important trademark that is kind of the correlation that makes everything else make sense.
Such as like Be Better or Be Better Industries.
Right. We secure that first thing first, make sure that you get that, and then we can move forward with these alternative variations that exist in your brand instead of applying for all of them at once.
That's fair. Okay. So you would apply for one and have it go through the entire process before you even start tackling the other subsidiary brand elements.
Yeah. Or at least get far enough in the process where we think, you got a 90% chance of it getting through.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Got it. So I think transparency is huge. And this is, the way that people work with you is more of a relationship than it is a transaction, because you're working with people for, in some cases, years, depending on how many brand elements they have, how much they continue to build. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, for a lot of people out there who like even have podcasts, most people aren't even continuing their podcast for 1.5 to 2 years. So it's like, is there a best time to apply for this for the trademark? Like, I've had this broadcast now for, it's going on 1.5 years. If I had did it at the beginning, I'd almost have my trademark by now. Like, is there a best time?
Well, oh man. So let me answer this question a couple different ways, because that's a really good question. I do think that it's when you're thinking about something like a podcast, and there's a lot that goes into this. Like if you're watching Brandon stuff live or on the podcast, you can see that there's a lot of production that goes into this. And what I found with a lot of my clients is that sometimes saying yes to moving forward with the trademark creates that kind of accountability and action taking that they're wanting to say, yes, I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to see it through to the end because I'm committing that I'm going to have this thing still present in 2 years.
Yes. And you've already paid for your trademark and you're like, okay, well, I've already done this. Now I'm going to wait this through and just keep going because I know that I've already put this thing out there into the universe.
Yeah. The other important thing to think about is that, especially if you're a more established business and you maybe have this idea of a podcast that you're planning out far in advance, but you haven't launched yet. It can be really smart, and not most people don't know this, but it can be really, really smart to apply for what's called an intent to use trademark, where you're applying for something like a podcast name before you even launch.
But it's not a real trademark.
Well, the way that process works is you get to about month 6 to 8, and the reviewing attorneys say, okay, this is all looking good. Now show us proof of your application. The intent to use trademark application allows for you to apply before you've launched, and then during the application process, you do start using it. So by the time you get the registration, you can show that you are using it.
I see. So this allows you to start later, or allows you to start even before you launch the project?
It allows you to make sure that, let me give you an example. Let's say that you are working on a new podcast and you file for an intent to use application. And then 5 months from now, you get a denial from the trademark office because they think that that name is too similar to another name.
Mm-hmm.
Now you know, okay, well, we still want to move forward with this trademark, but now we know not to use this name. Or if they said it all looks good to go, now you can move forward more confidently knowing that you actually own it. You're not infringing on someone else.
Yeah. Gives you peace of mind.
Yes. And as all of this is becoming more common with not just podcasts, but like business owners having Instagram accounts, right? Any of these platforms, whether it's, iTunes or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, they all have some type of infringement reporting that people can do. Every one of these websites has some type of a form that you can go on to, let's just say iTunes website, where you can report trademark infringement of another company.
Yeah.
If someone right now can report that against you on iTunes, if you don't have a trademark registration certificate, then iTunes will take that more seriously and say, okay, there might be an issue here. If you do have a registration, then there's little that platform can do because they're like, no, this person owns the registration. And
we need to get registered.
And it also works the other way, where I'm trying to think of the best way to give the context for this. So years ago, when I launched my firm, a great coach that I worked with advised me just to be myself on Instagram and not to have a company account.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a Joey C. Vitale account on Instagram. And about a year ago, we decided, you know what? Now that the law firm is growing, that there are more names and faces to the firm than just me, let's create an Indie Law account on Instagram. We looked into it, and someone else owned Indie Law.
Wow.
The account. But we have the trademark. We have the registration on Indie Law. So we filed a report on Instagram saying, hey, this person is not really using it. We own the registered trademark. And we got it within 24 hours.
Wow. That's powerful. 24 hours?
Yeah.
Huh. Unbelievable. It just goes to show if you didn't have that trademark, you would have had to name your channel something different completely.
Right, exactly. And so I point that out because I know that you are in this world and that you help people in this world of social media and podcasting and URLs and grabbing everything ideally that matches. So when people go wherever, they find you. When you have the registration on your brand, it makes grabbing all of those way easier.
Very cool. I know some people are listening, and even myself, I'm no expert in this, and they're thinking, okay, well, I've got my business name, so let's just use Be Better Industries as an example. I've got my business name. It's an LLC, but that's different than having it as a trademark. Is that true?
Yes. So here's my best way to explain this. When you file for an LLC, that name of your LLC is like your backstage name for your company. Meaning you're usually like in the backstage of your business when you talk about that LLC. Maybe it's official contracts that are getting sent out to clients, or maybe you're going to your bank, or you're filing certain paperwork with the IRS. That LLC designation, that name that you pick, is really more just about, officially what is your name. Trademarks protect your name on stage when you're actually in front of your customers and consumers. And I've had a lot of clients who thought that, oh, just because I have my LLC named a certain way, that gives me naming rights. This sounds a bit backwards, but getting an LLC to your name gives you 0 naming rights.
Wow.
I mean, yes, you can use it on contracts and with your bank, but it doesn't give you the right to use it in a public-facing way to customers and potential customers.
So they're two separate things completely.
Yes.
Fascinating. Okay. Very cool. I know that you personally have, especially around that time where you were experiencing these panic attacks and you're like, I got to change something in my business to eliminate this stress. You went all in on trademarks, which is incredible with Indie Law. And by the way, how long ago was that if we're looking at like a time frame here?
Yeah, it was 4 years ago.
4 years. Okay. You've come a long way in 4 years, brother. That's
thanks.
super cool. You should feel accomplished, and I'm sure you do. Now, I want to ask you like what the trademark process looks like when someone works with you. But before I do, just curiosity again, I know that you've gone down to 1 hour a week that you put into for the work that you do, right? So I'm curious to hear it from you directly. Number one, is that true? And
The 1 hour a week?
yes,
Yeah.
how do you do that? Well, like, what does that even look like?
So let me clarify what I mean here. I spend less than an hour a week um, not being the CEO of Indie Law. So I spend less than an hour a week doing client work, doing anything that's below CEO level tasks with the firm. And we now have a team of 18, almost 19 people who help the business in various ways. And the truth is that everyone is part-time except me. Everyone's contractors except me.
Wow.
But we've created some amazing processes and systems and have cultivated great contractors over the years who we give them a lot of freedom and control in how they do things, but we've got a great assembly line for how we take care of our clients. And the reality is that the people who are in place now that talk to our clients, that give the legal advising, that make sure that our inboxes are always kind of swept and that messages don't get left unresponded to, they all do that work way better than I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so just to say this because it's really important, you have your skills and they all have their skills, right? But it's one thing to be a lawyer, it's another thing to be a business owner and to understand business.
Yeah.
It, and this is the thing a lot of lawyers run into, where now they've got the degree, they've got all the years of schooling, they have the knowledge, but it's different to actually go out there and run the business. How did you learn how to operate and lead a team of people aside from how to build a business? How did you learn how to do
Man,
that?
that's a good question. Well, it's a combination of I was very fortunate when I went out on my own to be taken under the wing from great people who I, now looking back, realize like how big of names they are in my world. And it's like, looking back, I should have had more fanboy moments of who I was able to rub shoulders with really early on, but also pre law school, I got really into leadership, public speaking, improv comedy in high school and college. And now that I'm a business owner, it's interesting to bring that stuff back in a way as a business owner that I couldn't as an employee somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. How did you know when to hire the next person and the next person? When do you know it's the best time to hire someone new?
Oh man. Well, so part of what I say when I mean part of what I mean when I say that I spend, most of my time at the CEO level is my team and I have a ground rule in place where, we have a CEO or an integrator who, the way that we say it is, she runs the business this quarter.
Interesting.
I run the business for future quarters.
So like you take turns?
No,
Oh, I see. It's the perspective.
she is always running the business in this current quarter. So we have quarterly meetings with the whole leadership team. And then after that quarterly meeting is done, she basically is running the business and managing the team in the present quarter that we're in. And I'm thinking quarters ahead all the time.
Wow. Always looking ahead to see who you
Yeah.
might need next, what the next initiatives will be.
Yeah. So there are times where she's like, oh, so and so, is going on maternity leave and we just found out. So we kind of need to move quickly to bring someone in. But more often than not, it's okay. If we hire 3 new people next quarter, where ideally would we want them? Who's starting to reach capacity?
Yeah.
Who are we thinking we might want to be promoting soon? And how can we have someone else ready for them to delegate work to?
Yeah, no, that I think I ask you this, even though it's aside from the title of this conversation, because I think it's super relevant to everyone listening. And it's very inspiring to see what you've been able to build for this business, because number one, it shows that you're very business minded. And I would want someone business minded to be the person consulting me and getting a trademark, number one.
Mm,
And two, it just shows what's possible for those of us listening, where we're stressed out, we're doing all these different things, we're building the websites, we're maybe even the graphic designer, we're doing the social media, we're doing the client work. Like sometimes it can feel as online business owners like we're focusing on the marketing and the fulfillment and the sales and everything in between, it can become very, very overwhelming, especially at the beginning where you have to be doing everything on your own.
Yes.
And that's why I asked, like, when do you know it's the best time to hire someone? Because I'm going to assume that the stress for you dropped the more you brought more people on.
Yes.
Would that be true?
And if I can just say something to that real quick, you touched on something earlier that I thought was a really just great phrase and thing for us all to think about. This idea of, the fact that I'm both a lawyer and a business owner. And for anyone's watching, I want you to think about the fact that you're both, a master at your craft and a business owner. One thing that I'm hearing more and more at masterminds, at conventions that I'm in, at just Zoom room coffee chats with business owner friends is, as the owner of our businesses, we have this choice to make of, do we want to set up our business so that, we can be the business owner and still enjoy being that craftsperson, that expert in our space? Or do we want to really get out of the fulfillment work entirely and just be the business owner, just be the CEO? And I don't think that there's a right answer here, but I do think that the more your business depends on you, the less your business is worth.
Yeah. It's hard to sell something that you're in the weeds of every single day. It's hard to sell something when you are the thing that you are selling, because you sell it yourself and then you're an employee, when instead you're building a system of things like indie law. You're building an entire community and empire where you can step away from at some point after you train someone up to do something.
And I love that you bring up selling it, because we have no intentions of selling indie law, but we're now realizing we should at least be planning that might happen and be prepared for it.
Yeah, because your interests might change in the next 5 years. Look what you've done in the last 4. Who knows what the world is going to be with the metaverse and with everything else that is inevitable in the next few years. I think this whole conversation is framed in the way of, how are you setting yourself up for the future in terms of how are you looking ahead into the future, as well as how are you protecting yourself against what might happen in the future with the whole idea of trademarks. So this has really been a future proofing conversation, if anything.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
I love all the directions it's gone in. I think to end this one part before I ask you what the process looks like to work with your team to get these different elements trademarked, I think the one thing I just want to say, and I know it's probably apparent at this point to everyone listening, is really determine, okay, well, if I only could, and this kind of goes back to the 4-hour work week with Tim Ferriss, if I only could work on my business for 1 hour a week, what would I choose to focus on for that 1 hour? I think when you ask yourself that question, you'll realize that most of the other things that you're doing right now is just crap. And you're spending your time on all these things that aren't actually moving the needle versus spending the hour on the thing that will actually make real progress in your business. And when you find that out, then you can start asking yourself new questions like, how can I bring someone else on to focus on my social media? How can I bring someone else on to create the website? How can I bring someone else on to even organize my calendar and be an administrative assistant? Like, once you take yourself out of the daily weeds, you can start to really focus on how you can move the needle in that business of yours. So now,
spoken like a good coach, Brandon.
I appreciate that, but it's inspiring to me too, because I've got one person on my team right now, and I'm looking to expand that to the next person very soon to oversee my social medias. Because right now, my one person, Errol, his name is, he's absolutely incredible. He handles all my video editing and all the graphic design, and without him, I couldn't do 2 podcasts a week and 3 videos on the YouTube channel and all the other marketing that we do. Like, I just couldn't do that on my own. We went from 1 video a week to 5 different pieces of content every week with just hiring one person. So that's why I enjoy diving into your own story and journey, because I think it's relevant to so many people listening as online business owners.
Well, thanks, man.
Thanks for going in that direction with me.
Of course.
So let's say that we're listening now and we're like, okay, it's a no-brainer that I've got to trademark my product or my podcast or my business name. And we'll start with the biggest rock, right? Which is the thing that everything else arches from, such as the business name. What does it look like to work with your team to get that trademarked?
Yeah. Great question. So one of our slogans speaking of slogans, one of our slogans at Indie Law is we put the rad in trademarks. Uh,
Who came up with that?
well, I did when I was
I
in high
love it.
school. When I was in high school, and I was just a meek little freshman walking into club day. I'll never forget. I saw a sign from the circus club that said, "We put the fun in funerals." And I'm like, one of these days, I'm going to be able to spin that in a way that I want to. And so when we say we put the rad in trademarks, we created what we call our rad framework, or ready, aim, done. Where in the ready stage, we spend a week to 2 weeks looking at you're looking at your trademark, examining the different ways that you might run into significant roadblocks. We do a comprehensive search of the trademark database, which if is an absolute requirement for every one of our clients, because most applications, like we said, most applications fail. And the biggest reason for a refusal is that it's too similar to trademarks that are already registered or that are pending. So we do a deep dive into those registered or pending trademarks for you during the ready stage. Then during the aim stage, which is another week or two, we prepare your application, make sure that it's fine-tuned. There's a lot of strategy that gets involved in just either making sure that if there are certain risks, that we're strategically drafting that application to avoid some of those risks, or if there are no risks, to describe what you do as broadly as possible so that you get super broad rights for your trademark. And then the done phase is the rest of it all. So that's where we file it, and it's in the trademark office's hands for 12 to 15 months. During that process, we do all the heavy lifting so that you don't have to worry about anything. We have a customer portal that we'll invite you into at that time so that you don't get dozens of emails from us over those next 12 to 15 months, but you can always ask us questions. Our clients love that because I know these days no one loves the idea of being invited into one more client portal, but months from now, when you can avoid the headache of looking back into your email inbox to search through dozens of different email threads, it's really helpful to have one centralized place where everything is held.
Very cool. I love how you took that rad in trademark and you actually created a cool little acronym from it with the process. Like, just again, curiosity, is that rad saying and process something that you would trademark?
That's a really good question. So that is not something that we have trademarked yet. It is something that we are planning to, but because it's a more distinctive phrase, because it's so original and we don't think anyone else would use it, and because we actually have put together evidence of us using it in the past with timestamps and things, we can prove that we've used it.
And because you've used it, that can help you in a quote unquote battle against someone who wants to take that.
Yes. So for example, another slogan, this isn't really a slogan, but something that we say a lot is that trademarks are our jam.
Okay.
Just because that's on tone for the way that we talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
There are other firm owners who will say something like that. There's some law firm technology companies that have like swag where you can buy things like shirts. And if you're a trademark lawyer, it can say something like that on there. But trademarks are our jam, or fill in the blank is my jam. That is an easier to think of catchphrase.
True.
And it's not as distinctive. So when people see that, they might be like, oh yeah, that's cool for indie law to say that, but they might not necessarily think of indie law every time they hear that phrase the same way that they think about rad.
Very true.
And so it's less about, ooh, here's a cool name, let me call dibs on it. It's more about, how can I be protecting my customers and avoiding customer confusion? If my customers are seeing Be Better and thinking of me, Brandon, then what can I be doing to make sure that I'm minimizing the chance in the future where they're getting Facebook ads from some other Be Better?
Oh, yes. Great point. No, I'm glad I asked, because that's helpful. To go through this rad process, which
Yeah.
that sounded cool itself. That sentence. How do we begin this process with your team? Is there a website we go to? Is there a link? Because I'd like to put it in the description.
Yeah, thank you for asking. If you go to www.indielaw.com/video, on that page, you'll see a short little video from me, more information about how we do what we do. And you can book a free legal consultation with my team.
For those listening, again, that link is indielaw.com/video. The link is going to be in the description. If you're watching this live, it will be in the comments after the live stream ends. My final question for you is, what is your mission at this stage in your life? Like, what are you looking to accomplish in the next 4 years that you're with Indie Law, or whatever you decide to do moving forward in your life?
Well, the mission of Indie Law is pretty simple. It's to be the best brand protectors that we can be. And I've just been super fortunate to have a team in place that I absolutely love my team, because the leadership team that I have is most of them were with me 4 years ago when I had my panic attack series. And I learned the hard way just how much I could trust these people. And when I came back from 2 weeks in the hospital and no one stole my social security number, my clients were still happy, all of this stuff was the case, I realized just how deeply I could trust these people moving forward. And so I've gotten to, that's one of the secret weapons for our growth over the past few years, was just just radical trust with our team, where I think one thing that makes us different than a lot of businesses is on our team, trust isn't something to be earned. It's just something that you're given up front. And then as you prove yourself, you're given ownership of more tasks. But from the moment that we hire you, we give you that space of saying, we're not worried about you doing anything bad with us.
Yeah.
And that's been a real game changer with our team. But it also, one thing that I've noticed with my leadership team is that we're just, I didn't do this by design, but we're a pretty non-competitive bunch. And so for a while, we were looking at more of a mission statement that was like to be the number one firm doing whatever. And for us, we've just found that type of competitive mission or vision isn't super compelling for us. So it's more about just how can we constantly be learning, improving, and getting better.
Wow. Well said. What a mission. You know, one thing that I'll commend you for, and I think there's many things to commend you for, but several times now I've asked you a question and you immediately start talking about your team and you immediately start talking about other people. And it's not common that happens in a conversation such as this, because, you know, I've got a big ego, right? I speak with other people who've got big egos too. But it's very apparent that you deeply care for the people who work with you. And it's very anti-corporate, the whole style that you guys assume. Like, it's not like the suit and tie and the stuffy and you've got to earn trust, right? Like, it's very like what I said before we even went live. It's very feng shui. It's very zen. It's very humanistic. Yeah. And I commend you for the way that you recognize your team for what they do. And that's why you're able to trust them, because of who you are as a leader, which then trickles down to everybody else. So I commend you for that. It's incredible.
Thanks, Brandon. That means a lot. Thank you.
Joey, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. And I look forward to having conversations with you myself about trademarking my own things, but also for everyone listening. So I appreciate your time, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah. If I can make just one quick ask.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this on a podcast right now, go and make Brandon's week and leave a review if you haven't already. That's it.
Always thinking of other people, brother. Again, no one's done that before. So yes, please go leave a review. Much appreciated, Joey, for bringing that up. Of course. And guys, only leave a review if you took something away from this, right? If you didn't take anything away, then don't leave one. But if you did, take a few seconds to do that. Joey, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, brother.
Same. Thanks, Brandon.
You probably came to the conversation because you saw the title of how to trademark your online business name. And I'm sure that you left with a lot more than just knowledge on what a trademark is and what you should trademark in your business in order to protect it, even though that is so important in itself. You left with ideas of how to build your team. You left with ideas to reduce and eliminate the stress that you're experiencing in your own business. And you left with inspiration of what's possible for you to go from working in your business to begin working on your business. But let's do the first things first, and let's start protecting your business and thinking about the present now. And let's get a trademark for your business name, any of your signature systems, and everything that we talked about in this situation. Again, to have a conversation with Indie Law. The link is indielaw.com/video, indielaw.com/video. Links are in the description and the show notes for you to go check that out. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with Joey Vitale today. I'll link his Instagram and the Indie Law Instagram below in the description for you as well. And if you took anything away from this conversation, like Joey said, review the show, and even more importantly, share this show with one person who can use it the most, because we're looking to make exponential impact out there in the world over the next course of the next 3, 6, 12 months. Thank you so much for watching, as always. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.